Hello there, my name is Hideout and welcome to the Pantheon, where we're entering the universes beyond, because of course now Magic is filled with Transformers like Megatron or something similar. The Tyrant, 6 mana for a 7/5 robot. Well, and it's more than meets the eye, so you can pay 4 mana to cast this as its converted side. Transformed side. We're not allowed to use transform for Transformers, logically, so we have to use convert. We can convert backwards and forwards. Your opponents can't cast spells during combat. That's any combat, not just our own. And at the beginning of your post-combat main phase, you may convert Megatron. If you do, add colours for each 1 life your opponent has lost this turn. That's pretty goddamn good and can allow us to really get up there in terms of mana. But we're going to be flipping backwards and forwards between the different sides of Megatron. And Megatron Destructive Force is the backside. So it's a vehicle and it's living metal. As long as it's your turn, this vehicle is also a creature. It doesn't have a crew cost, so that's the only way we can make it into a creature. So we're not going to be blocking with this. Whenever Megatron attacks, you may sacrifice another artifact. When you do, Megatron deals damage equals a sacrificed artifact's mana value to target creature. If excess damage would be dealt to that creature this way, instead, that damage is dealt to the creature's controller, and you convert Megatron. So you're going to be flip-flopping backwards and forwards with Megatron between these two different versions. It's actually a really cool mechanic. I really like this. You know, it's interesting at least. You know what else is interesting? Me. Please subscribe, come and join me for tons more of this content. I'm going to be doing Optimus Prime soon as well, and then there's tons of Urzas and Mishras flying around. There's lots going on, but without further ado, let's get into my top 5 for Megatron. And in at number 5, we've got Haste, because with a card like this, it's all about the combat step. We want to be swinging in there, casting it for 4 mana, swinging in, then sacrificing something, an artifact maybe, and then getting in. So Alabu Ancient Witness is a 5 mana 4/5. Other artifact creatures you control have haste. Whenever 1 or more artifact creatures you control attack, Alabu Ancient Witness deals X damage to any target, and you scry X, where X is the number of tapped artifacts you control. Now that's really cool because both sides of our commander are an artifact, and with our big commander's ability to get tons of mana at the second main phase, this ping can allow us to do that, or it can clear a blocker or something like that. But the main thing I like about this is it's giving our commander haste. Similarly, there's the Hammer of Perthros, another artifact that we could potentially sacrifice to our backside of our commander. 3 mana for a legendary enchantment artifact. Creatures you control have haste, and you can pay 3, tap it and sacrifice land, put a 3/3 colors golem enchantment artifact creature token onto the battlefield. Now, sacrificing a token with our commander isn't great because it's going to be dealing 0 damage, but it's a nice way of making a blocker, something like that. So a good card all around. Then here we go, let's have some cards that aren't artifacts. Garnet the Blood Flame, 5 mana 3/3 with flash. When it enters the battlefield, return to your hand all creature cards in your graveyard that were put there from anywhere this turn. Other creatures you control have haste. So this is wonderful because we are going to be sacrificing, creatures or the artifacts and things like that, and bringing them back, then recasting them is very important. And your opponents will probably be wiping the board, so this is a great thing to cast after the board wipe. Don't cast it before the board wipe. I've messed that up a couple of times. Don't be like me. Then to finish off, we've got Perthros Bronze Blooded. 5 mana 7/6 indestructible. As long as devotion to red is less than 5, Perthros isn't a creature. Other creatures you control have haste, and you can pay 3. You may put a red creature card or an artifact creature card from your hand onto the battlefield. Sacrifice it at the beginning of the next end step. Now this is really cool if you're playing a very Transformer heavy deck. So we can put all of those artifact creatures into play. They've got haste, swinging straight away. Yeah, we're going to sacrifice them, but a couple of cards coming up which really helps with that. So it's a cool card all around. So haste is very important. I want to cast our Megatron for 4 mana, then swing in straight away, sacrifice something, deal some damage to face, bing bang bosh, convert, I almost said flip, convert it back, and then we get tons of mana to pump into something else. Which takes me on to number 4. And at number 4, we've got Metalwork Colossus, and these are all artifacts that I'd like to cast because they cost a lot of mana, which means we're going to be tossing tons of damage at our opponent's face. So Metalwork Colossus, 11 mana, 10/10. It costs X less to cast, where X is the total converted mana cost of non-creature artifacts you control. And you can sacrifice 2 artifacts, return Metalwork Colossus from your graveyard to your hand. So you can sacrifice it, sacrifice a couple of things, get it back. There's something else there to sacrifice with our commander. 11 damage. Say if you deal that 11 damage to a 1 toughness creature, you know, a token, something like that. That's 10 damage at the opponent's face. That's pretty awesome in my opinion. I like it a lot. Then we got the Scion of Draco, 12 mana. Oof. For a 4/4 with Domain. So the spell costs 2 less to cast for each basic land type among lands you control. So we want to be playing triomes, things like that. We're a 3-color deck, so going to reduce it by 6. So 6 mana, not the end of the world. Flying, each creature you control has Vigilance if it's white, Hexproof if it's blue, Lifelink if it's black, First Strike if it's red, and Trample if it's green. So we're getting 3 of those abilities on our commander and every other creature, while we can get some other abilities as well. Then there's the Ancient Stone Idol, 10 mana, 12/12. Ooh. Flash, and this spell costs 1 less to cast for each attacking creature. That's not just our attacking creatures. Say our opponents are swinging in with tons of tokens, we can flash this in, bing bang bosh. And Trample, when it dies, creates a 6/12 colorless construct artifact creature token with Trample. So when we sacrifice this with our commander, we're going to deal 10 damage to a creature, you know, and possibly our opponent's face. And then we're going to get a 6/12 for the Hassle. Really, really good card. And to finish off, we've got a non-creature here. It's Cauldron of Eternity. 12 mana for a legendary artifact. The spell costs 2 less to cast for each creature card in your graveyard. So you could go down a Reanimation style deck with this build, and this is great for that. Whenever a creature control dies, put it on the bottom of its owner's library. That is a bit of a downside, but it's not the end of the world. You know, you can build up the graveyard and then cast this afterwards. 3 mana, tap, pay 2 life. Return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. Activate this ability only anytime you can cast a sorcery. So 3 mana to bring back one of our massive artifact threats. Then our commander can sacrifice it to make tons and tons of mana. The fact that our commander makes so much mana means that casting these spells, you know, these massive 12, 10 mana spells, isn't actually out of reach. We can actually just cast them even without the reductions we're talking about here. So a really nice selection for you there. And that takes me on to number 3. At number 3, we've got Reanimation and Wake the Past. 7 mana for a sorcery. Return all artifact cards from your graveyard to the battlefield. They gain haste until end of turn. So this combines artifact threat and haste. Oh my god, the synergies, the synergistics. Ooh, look at that. Whoa, the microphone's vanished. Anyway, so this is just a cool card. 7 mana is a big investment though. Then Goblin Welder is the infinitely better way of doing this sort of thing. 1 red for a Goblin Artificer. Tap, choose target artifact a player controls and target artifact card in a player's graveyard, in that player's graveyard. If both targets are still legal as this ability resolves, that player simultaneously sacrifices an artifact and returns the artifact card to the battlefield. So you're just flip-flopping things, basically. One of those artifacts we sacrificed, or we'll sacrifice a treasure token and return it back. So we're getting massive threats back onto the field for not much loss. So cool card. Then we've got Cryptek. Sounds like a cryptocurrency sort of company, I guess. 4 mana, 3/3. Artifact creature. Ooh. Necron Wizard. Pay 2 and tap. Choose another target artifact creature you control. When that creature dies this turn, return it to the battlefield tapped under your control. So this is preempting the sacrifice that our commander is going to do, and then we get to bring one of those big threats back. Nice card to see. Then there's Marshal's Anthem, and this leads into sort of having a lot of big mana and Reanimation as well. So 4 mana for an enchantment multi-kicker for 2. So you can pay an additional 2 any number of times when you cast this spell. Creature control get +1/+1. Nice little anthem. Then when it enters the battlefield, return up to X target creature cards from your graveyard to the battlefield, where X is the number of times Marshal's Anthem was kicked. That's a fantastic Reanimation. so many targets, and you know, using all that mana, we can really invest. Then we've got a couple of ways to dump mana. You know, potentially with our commander, we're going to be making a lot of mana, so Walking Ballista is great for just channeling it in. Double X for a construct. On the field, this has a mana value of 0, so sacrificing this to our commander, not great. But you can pay for and put a 1/1 counter on Walking Ballista, so another mana sink if it's on the field, and remove a 1/1 counter, it deals 1 damage to any target. So if you're just wanting to generate some mana and you don't want to be attacking, maybe your opponents have got a really good defense going, you can just ping your opponents, deal tons of damage, and then go to your second main phase, get lots of mana that way. Similarly, we've got Everflowing Chalice, a great way of just dumping mana and storing it for future turns. 0 mana for an artifact with multi-kicker 2. A multi-kicker fest. You may pay an additional 2 any number of times when you cast this spell. It ends the battlefield with a charge counter on it for each time it was kicked. Tap to add a colours for each charge counter on it. So if we've got, say, 6 mana floating around from, you know, all this damage that we've dealt to our opponents, we can cast this for 6. Well, multi-kicker it 3 times, so we get a mana rock that taps for 3. Really nice way of investing mana. Similarly, we've got Astral Cornucopia. XX. It's an artifact that ends the battlefield with X charge counters on it. Tap, choose a colour, add 1 mana of any colour for each charge counter on it. So just a great way of storing mana. Mana batteries, you know, so we can use it later. Really nice selection there. So Reanimation, and then also an investment of mana. Which takes me on to number 2. And at number 2, we've got Fated Retribution. Now, this is a really, really cool card. I've always liked this. 7 mana is steep, but the reason I'm highlighting this card is because our commander makes it so our opponents can't cast spells in combat. So, why is that good? Well, if we want to push through something, you know, like a board wipe, well, a lot of times people have counter spells, don't they? But if we cast it during a combat phase, well, they can't counter it because they can't cast spells. So 7 mana for an instant, destroy all creatures and planeswalkers. If it's your turn, scry 2. So I'd actually, with this spell, wait until my opponent's combat, because it's just a nice big surprise, isn't it? You just go, ooh, so everything's dead. Yes, we probably kill our own commander, but it's not that bad. If you really need to wipe the board, you know, someone's played a creative, this is great and it pushes it through. Great card. Then we've got Tempest of Light. 3 mana for instant, destroy all enchantments. We're not playing too many enchantments mints that taste enchanting. It's just really good. We're not going to play too many enchantments, I don't feel, and we're just going to push a massive board wipe for enchantments. You know, if someone's playing a Voltron deck or something like that, we can really hit them hard. Then there's Erebos' Intervention. Black and X instant. Choose 1. Target creature gets -X/-X until end of turn. You gain X life. So a nice bit of removal there that can't be stopped if it's in combat. And exile up to twice X cards from graveyards. So this can really just hose the reanimation strategy of our opponents. Really, really good to see. Just a nice versatile spell. I do like the card. Then we've got Embercleave, which is an artifact that has a reduction, so we could potentially sacrifice it. And it works really well with our commander, because if our 7/5 commander's swinging in, well, giving it double strike, it's 18 damage, because this also gives +1/+1. Should have clarified that before. My maths isn't that bad. 6 mana for equipment with flash. This costs 1 less to cast for each attacking creature you control. When it's the battlefield, attach it to target creature you control. Crit creature gets +1 and double strike. Yay! And trample. That's an important one. Trample's actually really, really good on this card. So this can allow us to just deal tons of damage with our commander. Flip it. Flip, flop, flip. Get tons of different things going on. Really nice card. Then the Settle the Wreckage, a board wipe, very similar to Fated Retribution, but it's only for attacking creatures, so it can leave ours knocking around. 4 mana for an instant, exile all attacking creatures target player controls. That player may search his or her library for that many basic land cards, put those cards into the battlefield tapped, and shuffle his or her library. If you've got a lot of tokens knocking around, you might actually want to use this on yourself. Get a ton of ramp going on. There's versatility there. Then there's Comet Storm Multi-Kicker returns with a vengeance. Double red and X for an instant. Choose any target, then choose another target each time the spell was kicked. Comet Storm deals X damage to each of them. This is actually really good, not just in combat, but in our second main phase when we've got all that colourless mana knocking around. We can just wipe the board of everything in sight. And then Teferi's Protection, a brilliant instant that you might want to play in the deck. 3 mana instant until your next turn, you'll have total can't chase, and you gain protection from everything. All opponents you control phase out. And I'm back. Exile Teferi's Protection. Really, really good card. Just good. It's good. And that brings me on to number 1. And at number 1, we've got damage doubling. An insult to injury is one of my favourite ones. It's a one-shot effect, but I love Armencat. I love the flavour of it. I love the fact that it's, 2 cards in one. So much good stuff happening here. Insult, 3 mana for a sorcery. Damage can't be prevented this turn. If a sorcery control would deal damage this turn, it deals double that damage instead. So this is for our commander's sacrifice ability. So we sacrifice the creature when we attack. Then our commander deals the damage to that creature. So if it's 10 damage, well, let's double it to 20. And then I don't know if it doubles it again after that. It might do. Some things work like that, some things don't. But needless to say, we've dealt double damage. And then we've got a massive threat swinging in. And then injury, aftermath, so you can only cast this from your graveyard. Injury deals 2 damage to target creature and 2 damage to target player. But if you cast insult that same turn, by God, we're dealing 4. Whoa, incredible. But it's just a really good card. And here is another couple of ways to double damage. Gisela, Blade of Gold Knight, 7 mana, 5/5 Angel, flying and first strike. If a source would deal damage to an opponent or a permanent an opponent controls, that source deals double that damage to that player or opponent instead. If a source would deal damage to you or opponent you control, prevent half the damage, round it up. Absolutely phenomenal. Really, really skews the game in your favour if it lands. Wonderful card. I love to see it. Then we've got the Dictator of the Twin Gods. 5 mana enchantment with flash. If a source would deal damage to a permanent or player, it deals double that damage to that permanent or player instead. Whoa! Pure, unadulterated filth. Then there's the Fiendish Duo. 6 mana for a 5/5 with first strike. If a source would deal damage to an opponent, it deals double that damage to that player instead. And that's not just our damage sources, it's everyone's. So it causes your opponents to fight amongst themselves. Like, well, I could attack you for 2, or I could attack you for 4. And obviously you're taking the 4. Come on now. Then, if doubling's not enough, there's tripling. Fire Emancipation, 6 mana for an enchantment. If a source you control would deal damage to a permanent or player, it deals triple that damage to the permanent or player instead. What is going on? Then there's Angrath's Marauders. 7 mana 4/4. If a source you control would deal damage to a permanent or player, it deals double that damage to that permanent or player instead. Human Pirate, lovely piece of artwork. We've fallen on the floor, about to get, flamed. It's not great. Then to finish off, there's the classic Furnace of Wrath. 4 mana enchantment. If a source you control... if a source would deal damage to a creature or player, it deals double that damage to that creature or player instead. So there you go, dealing double damage. Who would have known? It's really, really good, especially with robots in disguise. Very bizarre. But thank you for watching. Hopefully you've enjoyed this. And, you found some cards that work well with Megatron. And I'll see you soon. Bye.